Hi everyone, Sue Matsuki here for Nightlife Exchange, doing another Sue's Muse today with a beautiful girl that I've met on campus several times. We've actually shared the stage a couple times at Susie Mosher's lineup. This is a gal that Broadway World calls the best vocalist in a decade. This is Lianne Marie Dobbs. Hi, honey, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much. Doing well.
I'm so excited to have you. I mean, you and I pass each other all the time. We have little snippets of conversations, but you're always someone I wanted to go have coffee with and find out more about. And I am, of course, a huge fan of your talent. So you have this show coming up at 54 Below Wednesday, November 6th at 9:30,
That's
and it's
right.
called Windmills of My Mind for Dusty Springfield. Why Dusty? I mean, you're a youngin'. How did Dusty speak to you? How did this happen?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I honestly, she's probably one of the most contemporary of my favorites. And I know that sounds crazy, but I always have been very nostalgic in my choices of singers. And actually her sense of the pulse that she sings with was a very different pulse than some of the more 1930s and 40s singers that I was always drawn to. So to me, there was a seductiveness about her singing, the expanse of her voice, the broad, eclectic song choices that she chose after she did the few hits that people insisted she do. But once she had the right to select her own songs, her song selection spoke to me, as well as the capabilities of her voice, which she could do with gentle compression, as well as when she let herself wail on songs that after she heard Marvin Gaye sing songs or Martha and the
Yeah, she was a
Vandellas.
hybrid. She kind of incorporated everything because to me that
Yeah.
that vocal volume and quality was very theatrical in some ways, and yet she was a pop girl,
Yeah,
and she incorporated all these different kind of nuances in her singing. And
absolutely.
I agree with you. I think she was
Yeah.
very unique in that sense.
Very unique. You listen to her sing Poor Wayfaring Stranger or Michelle Legrand's song, and it sounds completely different than Heat Wave. But you could see she was living her best life singing both styles. It back to back. That's what amazed me is how she would sing them back to back, and they were true. It wasn't like she put out an album of all songs that had a country influence, and all
Or an
songs
all
that had
quarter album or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
She
yeah.
needed to go from one to another. She had, and then that was fascinating to me to learn about her process and her brain and how it all made sense
Mhm.
that she could get bored very easily. So actually, sort of ping
That
pong.
sounds like someone else I know.
Ah, yes, I
I was
do.
actually just
Those
going to
days
ask
bored as
you.
well.
No, because you're very eclectic in your choices of songs. One time I hear you sing something crazy belt, and another time I hear you, rocking out or R&B, and you have a lot of different colors in your voice. But what is your process? I mean, okay, we're going to do a show. I have the curtains, I have the costume. Um, do you come up with a concept? Do you have a cluster of songs? What calls to you? And clearly in the case of Dusty, it was Dusty that called to you, and then you started to do your research. But
Yes.
how is the process for getting a show from that idea to the stage?
Thank you for asking. I mean, I think a lot of us singers talk about the blessings of a beautiful collaboration with a musical director. And I do think that that
You're with
is,
the best, yeah.
oh, and I remember when I told Ron Abel my idea of I'd like to do a Dusty Springfield show, his first words were, yes, and we got together and I listened to so many albums and I put together a playlist for myself, about 24 that I loved. And we got together and we were listening to some of my favorites and he asked me why. And somebody asking you, why do you love that song, is such a gift because then you have to articulate it. And then he listens, go, okay, I hear this, but hold on. I hear that reason. Now listen to this one. And then she recorded so many albums through several decades that the list changed, but largely because he asked me why I wanted to sing that song. So it did start with favorite songs first, and then I went down the rabbit hole of thank goodness for YouTube. There's so many
I
interviews
know. I
online.
use it as a tool for study as well. Yeah.
And watching her in interviews was really helpful, as well as there are a few biographies that were written by her manager and best friend, not by somebody who studied her, but somebody who spent so many hours with her for decades. And that's when I realized that the hook was one of the songs that was my favorite, the Michel Legrand song, The Windmills of Your Mind.
Yeah.
And what I thought was fascinating is she's quoted to say she doesn't like her recording of it because she didn't understand the lyrics. And yet I thought the lyrics of those songs expressed how her mind worked. And I thought that was just gosh darn fascinating that
Yeah.
she didn't even see it in herself. But when I read about the ways that she behaved in day to day life, the ways she behaved in the recording studio, it the she I call it hamsters in the brain, but in this case, it's more the windmills of her mind.
Yeah. No.
She spun out a lot, and I think it's beautiful to celebrate the way that so many creative artists navigate a different processing of information. It should be celebrated because look at what they do.
Right.
Look at what they do when they figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah,
It's
I've
just
often said in terms of where we are in a song, it's really no one's business. It's what interprets, we're singing it from our perspective and we have our connection to the lyrics and whatever we're connecting to in terms of what we're singing on stage in the moment. But you, as my audience member, might be filtering it through something else, what happened during your day. And then we just have
yes.
to stand back as a performer, as long as I make you feel and get you to some place, then I've done my job. You don't have to know if I'm singing about my dog or my husband or
No,
whatever.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
One of my favorite collaborations with Ron Abel on this actually. Because he did know Dusty Springfield, by the way. My musical director Ron
I
Abel
would
did.
assume that he's known everybody. Yes. Ron Abel's
Yes,
just super.
yes,
Go look him up. He's
yes.
amazing.
He's amazing. So he was Peter Allen's musical director for a while, and Dusty did take a break because she was truly exhausted.
Mhm.
The tour life and the press life that they made people do in the late 60s, early 70s it was too much. It was too much. So she took a break, but then, like me, she doesn't do boredom well. So people said, you got to come back. All right, you had a break. Come back, do what you love, come back to music. And Peter Allen was the one who successfully convinced her to open for him. And Ron Abel was playing for Peter Allen that day in
Wow.
LA at the Greek Theater during her first comeback in the States concert. Anyway, I found out from my research that she had been asked to do Cryer and Ford's Getting My Act Together and Taking It on the Road.
One of my
But
favorite shows. I love that show. Dear Tom
she,
from that.
yeah,
I sing Dear
yes,
Tom. Yeah.
she agreed to do that in the West End, but she said, I would like to um, have permission to do arrangements so that it has more of a groove, it has more blues, has a little more, funk to it. And they said yes, but it never happened due to dates, theaters not being available when she was, blah, blah, blah. So after we had done a lot of research and looked at her canon of songs, it was really fun to close our eyes. And this is a wonderful Ron Abel arrangement. What might that have sounded like if Dusty was standing next to him and said, okay, this is how I feel the song. And that was really magical to stand next to him in real time and him to try to imagine if Dusty was here, what would the groove be that she would add to this Cryer and Ford song? And so it's the one song in my show that she didn't record, but we had fun imagining how that might have gone.
Oh,
And
wow. It
that's
sounds like show
lucky to
sounds
have one.
fantastic. Now, speaking of theatrical backgrounds, I mean, I know that you're a working actress and I know that you've done several lead roles in certain Broadway shows and stuff.
Mhm.
Are you from New York originally?
I'm not. I'm from San Francisco Bay Area.
I thought so because I looked at your credits and you've done Catalina Jazz and you've done all the Feinsteins out there. And, so I assumed you were from the West Coast. So you come to New York. You're living here now, right?
I am, and my fifth floor walk up in Washington Heights.
All
Yes, I've
right.
been in an
So
apartment yeah, for a while.
when you
Mhm.
came as an actress that was doing regional theater and lead roles and stuff like that, what was the dream when you came to New York? I mean, none of us actresses think, oh yeah, I'm going to do cabaret. Half of us don't even know what cabaret was. It was more concert singing back in my day. It certainly was just concert singing, doing gigs. So how did you transition from that to this? And is the dream still to be cast in a Broadway show? Because I can totally see that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes, I did love the stage, and I was working quite a lot in San Francisco. There's wonderful regional theaters out there. I was working at ACT, TheaterWorks, Silicon Valley, lots of wonderful theaters in the Bay Area. And I had a lot of casting directors that were very much rooting for me in my early 20s. I was working while I was in college at San Francisco State and after professionally. And to be honest, Jay Binder from Vendor Casting came out to San Francisco to do an open call for the very, very first production of Irving Berlin's White Christmas. And the casting director at ACT, where I had done plays actually, as I just done a French farce there. I did a workshop of a Mac Wellman avant-garde piece, and as well as they knew I could sing as well. That theater, I did Happy End, Kurt Weill. She recommended to Binder. He said, "Is there anybody I should see for appointments? I'm doing a big open call because they were going to do their first production at the Current Theater in San Francisco." He says, "Is there somebody that I should meet while I'm out?" And the wonderful local casting director at ACT, I was on the short list of people that he should meet. And so I was quite young when this happened. And after that phone, I did the audition for him, and it was him and Rob Berman. For a long time, he was the musical director at Encores. I think I sang an Irving Berlin song, but a rare one. I was already a nerd, and
you do all the verses too. I mean,
oh yes,
she's like a piece of history. You don't just get Lianne. You get this whole wealth of research with any of her shows.
I do. And then he said, "What else do you have in your book? What else?" And I could just tell these two gentlemen were having the best time with me. I was in my early 20s, and so I sang all sorts of old rare songs for them. And after they got done, I think later that night I got a phone call from Jay Bender saying, "What is it that you want to do? When are you going to move to New York?" And there's something about getting a call from a casting director in New York that you've heard about that was so sincere, asking me questions about my life, what I wanted. And then he said, "You've got to do the move." So he did. He introduced me to an agent, and I did shortly thereafter, about a year later, I did make the move, and he was a wonderful friend to me. And I was in Irving Berlin's White Christmas. I covered Carrie O'Malley for the first 5 years of the show at the Rosemary Clooney role. Yes, I was quite young understudying it, but they trusted me with that music. So that was such a blessing. Anyway, yes, I love theater. I still do theater. And I think I had to do cabaret because I don't love singing a lot of the pop musical theater music that is out there right now. And I don't mean to disparage it because I know there's a whole wonderful audience world that loves it. I don't get that yummy sternum feeling. So I had to figure out, how do I share that music with my peers, because less and less of my peers knew the music that gave me goosebumps and chills and joy. So then I found the cabaret world because it was a place where I could continue to sing and express the music that makes my body hum. I don't know.
You are one of the youngins that have perpetuated the American Songbook and the addition to the American Songbook, including the Beatles and Dusty and all the people that came after that specific era was defined as American Songbook. So really happy to have you on campus and doing things here in New York and everything. And anytime you've ever sung, it's a wow moment. It truly is. I'm not blowing smoke. It's just, holy goodness, who is this girl? And I think that's the impression that you've given to a lot of people. In terms of collaborations and stuff, aside from this gentleman that brought you to New York and told you that it was time for you to maybe come and seek that part of your life, has there ever been any advice that you've been given by a mentor that you've kept in your soul and that you could share with another youngin on the way up that you think is valuable to you?
Absolutely. I did growing up from in San Francisco. I had wonderful, wonderful teachers. Carrie Shawn is the director of Young Rep, and the program still exists. And I went to that program as in high school. And she talks about enjoying and loving and relishing the process and loving the work, the digging, the mining of it all. And I think that's very key, because the moments that we perform, unless, yes, you're in a long running Broadway show of 8 times a week, but a lot of times the hours that you're spending actually performing are so much less than the hours you spend with the material, letting it all simmer. And you've got to figure out how to love that process, because that's what you're going to be spending the most time with.
Now, I agree with that completely. And just to mention, I just want to put this picture up. This, I took it down already. No, I don't want to do that. I want to share this picture because this epitomizes joy in the moment on stage. I mean, triumph and joy and glamour and look at the band
Oh,
focused on you. I think that this is everything that everyone should know about you, captured in a moment. And
thank you.
this is what you're going to see if you go to the show, and I highly recommend you do on November 6th at 9:30 at 54 Below. You do not want to
Thanks
miss
so
this
much.
beautiful creature, Lianne Marie Dobbs. Thank you so much for joining us
Oh,
today,
thank
my
you so
dear.
much. You know, it's funny. When we were talking about, the old music, a lot of what Dusty loved, some of her favorite songs were Baccarat